recorded for those who have very kindly messaged saying that they didn't realize they had other plans, like going to the vet and various things. So this is, going to kick off in just a couple of minutes. And it's lovely to see so many people. Happy days. Oh, help if I press enter. Right. Ready to start?
Yeah,
we should start. Yeah. We should start. Let's do this.
Everybody ready?
Yeah.
Lots of nodding, thumbs up. Good.
Boring housekeeping just before we do the fun stuff. You know how it is. You are not legally obliged to drink every single drop in front of you. Do what you need to have fun in a responsible way, etc., etc. Hashtag drink responsibly. And one of the other things that we always say is interrupt us at any point. If you've got a question, ask it. There's no such thing as a dumb question. We passionately believe that. And so anything you want to ask, just go for it. And we're not going to be offended if you break our train of thought or kind of stop us mid-sentence. That's absolutely fine. If you don't want to ask questions out loud, I have turned the chat box on so you can put them there, and we'll routinely read through those and answer as best we can and as quickly as we can. And 5 extra points, by the way, go to Sandra Healy, who I've just noticed has dialed in on Zoom in what looks like a moving vehicle. Well played. That is mega commitment, and has only actually happened once before. That was also quite bizarre. The other guy was in a taxi on the way to a pub. Anyway, so we are going to kick off. And to start with, we should probably just introduce ourselves, because I doubt many of you are familiar with seeing 2 of us on your screens instead of the 1. So a few of you have done these before. My name is Greg, co-founder of GreatDrams.com. This is...
Hi, everybody. I'm Kirsty, also co-founder of GreatDrams. Nice to meet you all. This is the first time I've actually been on one of the virtual tastings. So for me, it's all a bit new. But yeah, really looking forward to tonight. And yeah, so thank you all for coming. This is our celebration tasting, and I can't believe how much we've got to celebrate. I'm actually in a very weird state of awards fatigue. It's almost too difficult to keep up with how many we've won recently, which sounds very strange to say.
It sounds bold, doesn't it?
It does really, but
it's been a good season.
It's been crazy, hasn't it? So we just, a couple of weeks ago, we were sat around, and it's been such an incredible journey these last couple of years. I know everybody's talking about their own specific, COVID journeys and survivals. And we just thought, why don't we do something to thank everybody for what it is that we've worked so hard to achieve? Because without you guys drinking our whiskey and buying our whiskey, we wouldn't be where we are. So we thought, let's have a celebration and almost an after party, and go through our current range, let you guys try what we've been busy working on and how our brand has developed. Some of you guys I know have been with us right from the beginning, but there's probably some people here as well that might not have been on the tasting with us as well. So welcome to all of you. And yeah, let's get drinking some whiskey, shall we?
Absolutely. Right. First one you need to get in your glass is the Girvan 14-year-old. And now before you drink it, bear with me, there's 2 things we must do. Firstly, I'll let you pour it, and then feel free to raise the glass as we do our tasting reading, as it were. Thy whiskey, the art in barrels. Hallowed be thy drink, thy will be drunk, I will be drunk, be it in the house on my own or on Zoom with GreatDrams. Give us this day our daily dram, give us our spillages as we forgive those who spill against us. Lead us not to incarceration and deliver us from hangovers, for thine is the barley, the oak, and of course, the GreatDrams. Barmen. Cheers.
Cheers.
Absolutely. And as we go through this, we'll just do this for the first one. It's a little exercise. I know we've all just had a celebratory sip just there, but there's a little exercise that we do at the beginning of every single whiskey tasting, which is to just neutralize and kind of reset the palate and the nose. And so with the whiskey in your glass, please follow me by putting your glass to the bridge of your nose and breathing all the way out through your mouth, and then all the way in through your nose. And what this will do is just start to sting a little bit. Now breathe out again. Now have one little sip, swallow it, and forget about it. And now when you go back to nose it again, Lewis, the first one is the Girvan 14-year-old. And when you sip that and nose that the second time, you should get a lot more flavor from it. And that is purely because through this, and Jonathan there's nodding, that's good. I like it when at least one person nods, otherwise I'm thinking, holy, I wonder if these guys are getting what I'm getting. But the whole point of this is literally just to zero out your nose and palate and get them thinking about high ABV spirit, and specifically the spirit that's coming their way, which is, of course, immense whiskey. There are other ways of doing this, but this is the one we prefer. So I'm just going to actually have a little sip of this now. So for me, this Girvan, we describe it as, I love Reynard's, I enjoy a pre-tasting dram to clear the palate. Marvelous. I do too, actually. I think it's a 30-year-old Canadian whiskey just before coming on, just to, reset. Anyway, we describe this one, the Girvan 14-year-old single cask, single grain, as being like drinking boozy butter. And by what I mean by that, you have that lovely kind of brandy butter flavor profile to it. Something that has obviously booziness to it, but a lovely sweetness and almost creaminess there as well. This one, now if you think you've had awards fatigue before tonight, there's one that we haven't actually got around to telling anyone about, which is this one. Not only did it get 2 gold stars at the Great Taste Awards, it actually got a resounding gold medal at the London Spirits competition. And we're absolutely blown away by that, because we've only entered it twice. Last year we got silver for something, I can't remember what. This year we had 2 golds and 1 silver. So very happy with that. And Matt, absolutely. Compare it to the Girvan 13. Slight difference there. Our 13-year-old Girvan from last year, we actually finished in an ex-Oloroso sherry cask, a second fill ex-Oloroso sherry cask for 30 months. So you're going to have quite a different flavor profile there. But comparing them side by side is absolutely fine. I've actually enjoyed doing that a couple of times in the office. Part of the joys of what we get to do. And it's quite a lovely little comparison, actually. And one of that 13-year-old, I'm glad you brought it up, actually, because it was one of those whiskies that we were basically told would never work and wouldn't work by a very esteemed member of the whiskey industry. And as is often the case, I ignored it and just did it to see what would happen. That does sounds really kind of arrogant, but I genuinely, it's not my way. And any of you guys who know me will know that I'm not like that at all. But I couldn't work out why grain whiskey was not being matured in sherry casks. And the response I got was, it would be a waste of a sherry cask. And after a bit of hissing, I was like, I don't believe in that. I eventually said, thanks for the input, but I'll politely just do it anyway. And Sandra, thank you very much for coming back, and especially from the car. Great to see you. Thanks for all your support, especially over the last 2 years with all the tastings you've joined us in and the vast volume of Girvan bottles you have acquired from us. That has been incredible. So thank you very, very much, and enjoy your band practice tonight. Hope it all goes really well.
I will. Thank you. Bye-bye all.
Magic. Cheers, Sandra. Ouija, yes, there is 14-year-old left. And I'd just answer on that as well. If anyone wanted to, I know it's in the email, but we all know not everyone reads emails in detail. There is a discount code that we've done for tonight, and it expires tonight. So if you did want any bottles from what we're tasting today, actually, I think it works for all of them anyway, but just put in Gold Rush. Oh yeah, Gold Rush, all one word at checkout, and that'll give you a cheeky little discount on it. And that's one of those, just a little thank you as well for getting involved and being part of this. What do we think of the 14-year-old, by the way? We happy? We good?
Yeah, lovely.
Yeah. Positive nodding, somewhat aggressive nodding from a couple of you. That's good as well. I like that. Don't strain your neck though. It's, Very good. Any thoughts or questions at this point, by the way? Feel free to ask anything. Don't be shy. We're all friends here.
It's very different. It's very different from the 13.
Yes, absolutely. This one was matured in a first fill ex-bourbon cask for its entire maturation. So all 14 years actually. And it came from anyone who's been following us for a little while will potentially remember our 11-year-old Girvan that we released back in 2016, I think it was, maybe 2017. And this was actually the sister cask. It was only sequentially, it was one cask number up from this one, just 3 years older. And I think those 3 years have done wonderful things to it in that time. So yeah, it's hopefully you've enjoyed that one. And I'm just going to put the link in for you just to make it easier. If you want any further information or just for your own reference later on, once eventually the web stuff loads, I'll put that link in there. Here we go. And you'll see all the shiny medals in the new graphics that I've been busy putting onto the site this week. Any other questions or anything? Go on. Come on. This is a safe space. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Okay.
I've got a question, but it's a much more general question. How easy or difficult is it to get a hold of casks when you're an independent bottler? Do you use an intermediary? Do you go direct to the distilleries? Great question.
And the answer is it varies. This is quite woolly, but sadly true. Essentially, we go to distilleries for some casks, correct? Where we've got great relationships. Other times we have to go through brokers. Occasionally someone will email me and say, hey, I've got this cask, I want to sell it. And we're like, easy there, Tiger. It's not quite as easy as that because we have to go through all the QC, like quality control, make sure the lineage of what you say it is what it is. Sorry, JR, I'm gonna have to just mute you for a second because I'm getting some feedback there. That is not a personal slight. Please unmute if you have a question or want to chat. So yeah, we do a mixture of brokers and direct with distilleries. It's getting, I wouldn't say it's getting harder actually. We've got more connections now than we ever have. We spent a significant amount of time during 2020 actually building up our network of contacts within the industry on the cask sales and purchasing front. Before that, we relied on a couple of well-trusted sources, but now we have 20 different places where we get casks, depending on my mood and what they are, and what Kirsty and I really want to have in the range, because that's fundamentally it. It's not just, oh, here's something shiny, let's have it. It's very much, would this work in what we like to do with our releases? And then we also have an innovation kind of program as well. It's innovation, I'd say, with somewhere between a small I and a capital I. I don't think it's quite capital really, because it's not groundbreaking, but it's definitely not just, oh, look, it's another type of sherry. So we're playing with different things like, at the minute we have a cask maturing in an maturing in an ex tequila cask. Ooh, cheeky. One that's in an ex, I think it's American red wine. I need to double check, but definitely red first fill red wine barrel, which is quite aggressive. And we have our very first rum cask maturing as well. So we're starting to really kind of push into lots of different areas, and that's come through the network of access we have to different coopers as well. So before we just used one place if we wanted casks. So what you'll notice from, do you know what? No one's ever going to notice it, but I notice, and I know it from our range, is that predominantly, I think it's only once we've not used first fill. And that was that Girvan 13 that was brought up earlier. Every other whiskey we've released has been a first fill matured cask, because I can play with them more. The more flavor I have, the more I can mute and the more I can kind of draw out flavor. But if you're using second fill casks, you're not going to ever get as much as you can from the flavor, because a lot of it would have gone in the first kind of release, you know. So yeah, we do a lot of different things, and access comes from all over the industry. To answer Matt's question, what's your oldest cask? I think it's just about to tick over to 32. It's either 32 or 33 this year. Wait, hold up. When did Liverpool last win the league? It was 2020, wasn't it? So yeah, it'd be 32 this year. Yeah, so because it was 30 during that year. But we do also have about 4 or 5 in their 20s now. One of which we're hoping to release later this year. And another one of which we bottled a small amount of it for our subscribers. So we've got a GreatDrams subscription, and they had, actually, I've just totally ruined the surprise for next month, haven't I? So if you're a subscriber, that's what you'll be getting next month. Balls. That was not supposed to happen. But yeah, so we do fun little things with that as well. When will I bottle it? I don't know, to be really honest. I just don't know. It won't fit into this year's schedule, I wouldn't have thought, unless I bump something. So potentially next year. 32 is a bit of a weird age to bottle a whiskey. 33 sounds a bit nicer, so maybe we'll do that.
How regularly would you sample those casks, Greg? Is that every 3 months, every 6 months?
Another great question. So we get sample. It depends on how old the cask is, actually, and how close I think it is to being perfect for bottling. So our process is very much, we'll buy the cask, do a full kind of quality assessment or reassessment once we've got it in our ownership, and at that point we will kind of almost set a mental marker. I say mental marker, it's obviously in a spreadsheet somewhere, of when we believe it will be ready. And when it's kind of on that trajectory, if we know it's not going to be ready at all for 5 years, 7 years, whatever, I won't bother sampling it for a while. If it's something like, if it's in our finishing program, so like the sherry casks or like the tequila and that, I think I just signed off the drawing the samples this afternoon. So they should be here in a few weeks for the innovation platforms. But some of the other releases, like the sherry cask, when they're finishing, we'll normally check every 3 months. If it's not in a finishing kind of plan or program, it's more likely it'll be every 6 to 12 months. Unless I sample it and Kirsty samples it and we both feel like, oh, hello, that might be nearly there, but it needs a bit more. So a great example of that, or 2 contrasting examples of that, if you let me explain. Our very first single malt release was a Craigellachie 11-year-old single cask single malt in our rare cask series. And this one, it was already beautiful before we put it in sherry cask, but being a massive fan of their distillery, both of us, like Kirsty's favorite whiskey is, I believe, the 23-year-old Craig from their range. And we thought, it would do all right in a sherry cask, wouldn't it? So we had a first fill Oloroso sherry cask commissioned. So we have all of our casks commissioned. We don't just lob them in whatever's available. And because we need to know the traceability and the quality markers. I'm not prepared to have anything that's not absolutely on the money for quality. That's the fundamental, something that shouldn't really need to be spoken about, but you kind of have to reassure every now and then, or occasionally you have to tell yourself like, oh yeah, that's why we put that ridiculous spend in, because we need to make sure that this is good stuff. Yeah, so that one, I actually really upset the warehouse guys, because I was getting sampled. That was the first finish we'd ever done and first single malt we'd ever done. I was nervous. And so I got the sample sent down every 3 weeks. And they were like, seriously, man, like you're paying 50 quid a time just for us to lift the cask back into the rack. Why are you doing this? And it's like, because I don't want to screw it. I really want this to work. And it was one of those like real, like, I just really love this whiskey and I don't want to ruin it. And so they did it and happily invoiced merrily. But then it basically came down to at 6 months, boom, this is absolutely perfect. And so we bottled it, and they're like, all right, you really want to bottle the whole lot now? I was like, yes. But then we actually held back about a quarter of the cask to see what would happen, just as an experiment. And we held the rest of it back for 4 extra months. And I wouldn't say it's better or worse. It was just a different style, a different kind of impact to the sherry. But it was useful for us to learn and understand. Whereas the Glen Murray, if anyone remembers Christmas 2020 and didn't just drink through it like the rest of us, that one we bought when it was 6 years old. And when we did the first cask sample of it, truly the two of us hated it, which is not great, is it really? Considering that was actually the second cask we'd ever bought. We're like, oh, balls, what are we doing here? And so we're like, right, we can either sell it on, blend it away, or bottle it, or leave it. Like, right, we're not bottling it because it's not going to tick any of our QC checks. Let's leave it and use it as an experiment. And so that was at 6 years old. Checked it every year. No. Got to 10, and it was good, but not great. Leave it. It's got to 11. It's like, oh, hello, something interesting is happening here. This big apple kind of fruity character was coming on. But no, let's see what happens. Got to 12, fell in love with it. And that's when we bottled it for that Christmas. And it all sold out within like 4 weeks, which was bonkers. Like, we didn't see that coming. So yeah, it's a tale of two casks there, but wildly different approaches. But we'll only ever release something when it's absolutely perfect. Which is kind of why we're here tonight, because we believe that if we're going to release something, we've got a confidence that we can put it into an award and see what happens, and it should do all right because we've taken the time to put the effort in. And we don't enter every single one into awards, by the way. We don't have the money for that. They're very expensive, especially the San Fran World Spirits one. Jesus, it's about $1,000 all in once you send all the bottles over. But we'll get to that one in time. So it's a couple other questions in the chat, and I will answer those in a second, but I'm conscious that you're all probably dying of thirst. So the next one is the North British. So I know it's weird, isn't it? Finish, I was going second on the tasting and not having the 29-year-old as the headliner. But that's because it's a bit more delicate than the sherry cask and infinitely more delicate than the peated Isla whiskey. So you pour that one in. I'm just going to finish my Girvan and then pour myself one as well. Just copied the discount code into the chat as well. So if you did want to get anything, just copy and paste. Keep it easy. So now you've got it in your glass. Let me just go through where we're at. Where do your casks mature and age? Awesome question. Classified, unfortunately. No, it's not at all. They're all in Scotland by law, although there's actually one on the high seas right now. Hoping to Christ it doesn't get caught up in any of the craziness that's going on our planet right now. But yeah, we've got one quite literally on a ship on its way from Israel to Scotland, of all places. So yeah, that'll be a future cheeky release. Yeah, we used to keep them all in one warehouse, thinking that was administratively brilliant, and then it was pointed out that's a massive risk if they develop a fire problem. So we decided that we would spread the risk a little bit, and now we have casks in about 8 different warehouses across Scotland, and at various distilleries. Some keep them there for us, some don't. Just depends. I know we've got one at an English distillery as well, just kind of mooching around for a bit. Yeah. Next one. Any idea what grains the Girvan has been made from? From Steve. We don't know for sure because they don't really tell us. And grain whiskey doesn't massively depend on that as a flavor or selling point due to the nature of the process. Typically, it would be maize at most of these, but I would hazard a guess it's either maize or wheat because of the smooth kind of silky character to it. But grain whiskey is more driven. The grain they use is more driven by the price of particular grains at any given time, instead of it mattering, because once it goes through the grain whiskey process, it kind of strips away the kind of different differentials between the grains anyway, so it's not as big a deal which grain you use. Hello, John. Nice of you to join us. Whoa. Look at that, 56 minutes late. That's -5 points if ever I've seen it. Dan has asked, why 48.2? And why is cask strength more beneficial to brand than bottom line? No, for our range, so this one you're trying now, actually, North British, 49.9, and this is actually at natural cask strength. This is what happened after 29 years. It came down from the original ABV of low 70s for grain whiskey. It's a bit higher than malt whiskey typically. Came down to 49.9 in the nearly 3 decades it was in the bottle. And when it comes to ABV, we started off bottling actually at 46.2 because our first 3 or 4 releases tasted incredible at that ABV. And then we started thinking, actually, there's something potentially missing or something we've not necessarily kind of addressed or made made conscious belief systems or thoughts about, and that's texture. So when you are drinking the whiskey, that mouthfeel or texture, like on this one, it's quite different to the Girvan. Sorry, I had to put the old cough button on there. Yep, there you go. That wasn't me. That was not me. Whoever thought that was, I've got a cough button. It's fine. So this one, we slightly different texture-wise, and that's why, and that's often due to the ABV. The nature of our range is that we're not a brand really for cask strength. The highest we've ever bottled at is 54.5, which was our Girvan 30-year-old in the year 2020. Only 96 bottles achieved from that cask. It was a very special bottling, and we felt it was right to do that at cask strength. And with most of the others, we don't test every single one because we've got a good gut feel now. We know what we're doing, but we go through and test them at different ABVs from about the mid to late 50s down to 46. And 48.2 is normally our marker point, because that gives us, for what we want from our range, that great texture, flavor profile, the depth and the character, but also that overall and overarching character of it and flavor profile. And it's something that if we went higher, it could be slightly harsher. There's a lot of our customers that we meet at events and things are not necessarily alpha whiskey drinkers. That wouldn't be what's your favorite drink? Whiskey. It would be a drink they enjoy. But then similarly, our incredible loyal customers, they love that they can crack a bottle and have a few of them and just enjoy, and not have to worry about thinking about water. Have you flooded it? Have you wrecked it or whatever? And definitely not too thin by going lower ABV than that. And so 48.2's worked really well for us. And it's one of those things that it was a conscious decision to just make, to decide on what ABV worked for the casks that we're bottling. And it made sense and kind of served us well. Pete, I think I've answered the question about where you store the casks. Steve, do you find you lose out on oakiness using first fills? Not really. A lot of ours will be bottled between, say, 8 and 12-year-old, I think is probably the kind of core heartland for our age statements, unless it's like the Isla, which is 7. We did one Benriach at 5 years old just to see what people would say, really, and they all seem to like it. But yeah, we normally find there's a solid oaky character. Some of them more than others. So our current Glengarry, that one had a really big kind of whack of that oakiness to it, and we really like that. Others are big on the sherry influence, and some of the others are more kind of drawn from other elements of the distillery character. So yeah, for us, it's not really been a problem. Going down, Ouija, woof, NB is amazing. Couldn't agree more, as Matt can't either. John, in case you haven't noticed, it is North British. We have only got through Girvan so far, because I have not stopped talking for 31 minutes. And why is it that grain whiskies need to reach older ages before they get into their groove, asks Mark. Essentially, it's I don't really know. It just happens to be the case. Normally it's because the spirit goes in at a higher ABV, to be fair, and it takes longer for that specific style of spirit to round off and have the character that you'd want from a whiskey that you'd drink. The kind of single malts, you still wouldn't really want to be drinking them at 3 years old. I was doing some spirit assessments yesterday of a load of 3-year-old whiskey, not for our brand, for another brand. And you're just thinking, ooh, easy there. Give it a bit of time, shall we? Or maybe play with the cask and put it into something that's going to help it. But yeah, it's the nature of the beast. The older grain gets, the absolute better it gets every single time. I think the youngest grain we've ever done is a Port Dundas 10-year-old, and that still worked really well. We still get people telling us that's one of their favorite whiskies from us, which is quite cool, especially as it's from a dead distillery. Yeah. Steve, that Benriach was great. Thank you. I agree. North British, fantastic. Quite bourbony, great. A lot of kind of Tony the Tiger answers here, fantastic. Getting a coffee and chocolate finish from the North British, magic. I'm going to try it now. Any other questions or thoughts or anything while I have a cheeky sip?
Just say one of the first tastings I had North British in it by an independent, and it blew me away. But I could never remember who it was by, and I bought all sorts of North British afterwards, and they never matched it. But this is stunning. I love it.
Boom! Thank you very much, Alistair. I really appreciate that. Yeah, we were taken by this. We were very fortunate to get this, and it's one of those. We're fortunate. Actually, we got 2 casks. One's going to be left for a while. See how it develops. But this one, we only got 150 bottles out of it. It was over those 3 decades, it had really, well, evaporated or angel shared away. But yeah, it was one of those, as soon as we tried it, bam, that was just nuts. And Bob, who's on here somewhere, I just saw him pop up. Was very fortunate that he got to try a pre-release sample when I was in and ahhing whether to release it this year or wait till it was 30. And when Kirsty and I talked it through, essentially 30 is a nice vanity number. Oh, we've done another 30-year-old, yay. But for me, it was bang on for the flavor, character, quality, and texture that we wanted. And to leave it longer potentially would have added risk that we didn't need to put in to a very old whiskey. So yeah, and that kind of leads on to Lewis's question. How do you decide when something's ready to bottle? Is it just you deciding you like it? Do you ever have doubts? Given it's subjective, do you get opinions from others? Many questions. So essentially, we have a QC list. So sorry, I keep saying QC, quality control list, which is our pre-bottling kind of pre-flight list. We won't bottle anything unless it hits certain quality markers of flavor, enjoyability, kind of intangible things, as well as tangible things like the clarity of the spirit, making sure that nothing's faulty, nothing's dodgy. But then also it is definitely a subjective thing, because the last bullet point on the list actually is, would we personally, Kirsty, myself, or just me, or just Kirsty, depending on, we lean towards different flavor profiles. Would either of us buy an entire case of it, i.e. 6 bottles? Would we put the Amex on the table and say, charge me? By the way, Stuart, one of your kids was in the background dancing behind you there, and that was quite amusing. Just for point of reference. And I don't miss anything on here, team. They never miss a thing. But yeah, so would we buy an entire case of 6 bottles? And if the answer is yes, that's the biggest tick of all of them. It's ready. If the answer is maybe, we'll not bottle it. It'll be sent back to the warehouse, left for a few more months to see if it develops and how it develops. If the answer is no, it'll be put in the warehouse for a lot longer. And we have once actually gone to others to ask for an opinion when we did our very first blend for what was the Christmas 2019 release. Remember all those days of happiness and optimism and being able to post a bottle of whiskey to France? Oh, those crazy heady days. A lot's changed since then. We sent out samples. I think we ended up sending out like 200 samples to various whiskey clubs around the UK to get feedback, which was great, but also we got too much feedback. So it was quite hard to work out what to do with it. And one whiskey club, I can't remember, I think it was the Orkney Whiskey Club, who were great fun. They all did like a full-on flavor chart thing, and all these spider diagrams of where the flavors were. I'm like, Jesus Christ, I just wanted you to say yes or no to the 3 samples you were given. Like, it wasn't more than that. Some of them were like literally pages of tasting notes. I'm like, Christ alive, this is incredible. Good dedication. And so we incorporated as much of that into the evolution and the development of it, which is wicked. But since then, we normally keep it in-house. Occasionally we'll use cask samples. Like I started a local whiskey club, so those guys will occasionally get a cask sample because it's easy enough to lob it into the end of a structured tasting, like in the pub or on Zoom or whatever. The things normally are planned a lot better than they were back then. There was a period in October 2020 where we had accidentally sold every single bottle of whiskey we had. And because of COVID, there was no way of getting anyone to go to work and fill a bloody bottle for us. So we had a period of 6 weeks where, as a whiskey company, we couldn't sell whiskey. We had thousands of miniatures, thankfully, so we were able to do our virtual tastings, but we weren't able to sell a bloody bottle on the back of it. It was comical and mentally annoying, but it's just the nature of the beast. And I know another company who did it, and they won't ever tell anyone that they ran out of bottles, but I actually think it's quite funny that we literally couldn't sell it if we wanted to. If someone wanted to buy a bottle, they couldn't have it. There you go. So yeah, it's we've evolved and learned a lot since then. And the next year it starts planning from about, theoretically it starts planning from about October, and then normally the lineup for the whole year is set in around November, and then the labels are all designed in January, and we'll still add in a couple, and occasionally we'll move a couple around, but yeah, we're a bit better than we used to. So that was a really long-winded answer to that, Lewis. Hope you got something from it. Steve said, do you have a distillery that you'd love to bottle but haven't had the opportunity to yet? Woo-hoo. I mean, looking at there's behind me, there's a wall of bottles of mine. I mean, the first one I noticed was Yamazaki. Don't know why. But yeah, no, we'll never get the opportunity to bottle a Japanese whiskey, unfortunately. Thinking vaguely more achievable, I need some inspiration to look around, actually. Let's see. I've done quite a few of these. I mean, I'd say Ardbeg, but there might be a cheeky surprise for a few people soon on the old subscriber list. Then you've done a few Craig Ellikeys. The Dalmore, that would be all right, wouldn't it? Dalmore would be quite lovely. It'd have to be a sherry cask. I mean, I don't think anything has come out of there that's not been in at least 5 different casks. And for good reason. It's an incredibly good brand, great whiskey, beautiful stuff. So yeah, I think if we could do a wine cask from the Dalmore or a sherry cask from the Dalmore, that'd be quite glorious. What else? So good butchers.
What about a Teeling?
I've been trying for years, and they were the first ones I was about to say, and we were within a whisker of getting one actually about 3 years ago, and then they were bought by Bacardi, and they had a whole change of administrative processes. Let's put it like that. And yeah, no more, sadly. Also, the age stuff is Bushmills anyway, so we'd probably just go direct to them. Woo! Let's see. Heaven Hill would be quite fun, wouldn't it? Some of the old bourbon. So I'm just literally looking at bottles that I like now and saying the words out loud. Aberlour. I would love to do an Aberlour. They're one of my favorite distilleries. Yeah, they're just insane. Very rare to find one from there. To be fair, it'd be brilliant if we could get a Middleton, get the old Irish going. That'd be quite fun. But yeah, we've got some cool things in progress right now. We've got casks in the warehouse from predominantly Scotland, but also England, Ireland, America, Israel, and if admin can get dealt with, India as well, which is one of them. So let's see what the other questions are. How many bottles do you keep in your personal question? Matt, that is an incredibly personal question, and I'm going to ignore one or two. Ouija, if Liverpool win the league, what bottle will you celebrate with?
Easy peasy.
Yeah, I've got, I think it's downstairs because I was doing some photos the other day with it. There's actually a blend with a liver bird on the label. It was bottled in the 80s. And it's actually a special blend of Bells. Bloody horrible. But
I was going to say, it's horrible, isn't it?
Oh, it's tragic. But I've had one measure of it every time we've won a piece of silverware in the last 5 years. And yeah, and there was quite an amusing gif when we got the league where Kirsty did one of those bouncy things. I can't remember what you call them. Sorry, on Instagram, where it's me just holding it, putting it up to have a sip straight from the bottle. I didn't want to upset a piece of glassware on it, but and then it was just like pinging up and down. But I had basically had an afro thanks to lockdown, so it looked like I was homeless drinking straight from a bottle of whiskey with a bird on it. So yeah, it was quite a strange thing. Yeah, that's probably the answer there. Aberlours with Gateway Malt. Yeah, I think it was one of mine actually. Any Tobermory? No, we don't have any. I'd love to. I think it'd be quite good fun actually, but yeah, no, we've not really had a chance to do that. Steve, if Man City win the league, do you know what? If Kirsty was still, she's had to go and deal with the kids, unfortunately, and one of them's not very well this evening. Great timing, isn't it? It's almost as if they know. But yeah, she's a passionate Man City fan, so it's not been the happiest today. I wish she was next to me when I read that question out, Steve. I truly do, just to see what the answer was and if she'd just storm off. I don't know. What bottle will I drown my sorrows? To be fair, I think they're going to win the league. I don't want to get drawn in too much into football, but yeah, no. I think if I phrase that question slightly differently, Steve, if Liverpool only end up with the Carling Cup this year, I'm going to pick any bottle at random, and you won't see me for about 2 days. That's pretty much the result there, responsibly. Cheers, Ryan. I'm going to ignore that. Hemel, Greg, you won't believe it, but I have an Aberlour 10-year-old cask. Hello. Needed to get it, mate. That is epic. And I think you've actually told me that before, actually, at NRB. See, I was listening to you. I was. And I was jealous then, and I'm even more jealous now. Magic. Right, next up is the English cask. Are we ready? This is our newest release, actually. Oh, sorry, I forgot to point out, North British silver, this one. And it got IWSC silver, scoring 92 out of a possible 100 points. So not too bad, really. English is next. I do that every single time, by the way. It winds Kirsty up something chronic. I cannot stop it. It is somewhere between instinct and annoyance.
Just before we start the English, can you tell us any more about the Northern British?
Good point. Didn't say a word about it, did I? So yeah, first fill ex-bourbon for its entire maturation of 29 years, actually 29 and a half years. But yeah, that's the way you have to number things. And yeah, bottled with natural cask strength. North British is a distillery that virtually no one's actually heard of, unless you're an alpha geek in the whiskey industry, or unless you're a really passionate kind of grain enthusiast. I was fortunate enough to go to that distillery really early in my whiskey journey. Actually, you can't go just from the street. You have to be invited. But I was on a bloggy press trip thing with a couple of really fun people. Actually, we had a great laugh. And Tom Sandham, if you've ever heard of him, he's from the comedy duo The Thinking Drinkers, and they are hilarious. Their books are great, their stand-up show is amazing, and I think they've got a column in one of the broadsheets as well. But anyway, he was great value on the trip. But North British is a 50-50 joint venture between Diageo and Edrington, which sounds weird, but is relatively commonplace in the category and in the industry. And I went to the cooperage there, and it was mad. first time I've been to a cooperage. I'd wanted to go for years, and it was to actually use a Liverpool football example, if you don't mind. They all basically spoke in static. It was like they had their own dialogue. So it was like they like trying to listen to Steven Gerrard and Jamie Carragher speaking. It's just Stevie lad, Liverpool, and that kind of thing. You can't really hear anything apart from 2 or 3 key words at all. And then they turned to us, and one of them turned to me and was like, "All right, fat lad, I bet you can't lift a barrel." I was like, "Wrong person. The only thing I can do, vaguely sporting wise, is lift stuff." And so lifted it. And after that, I didn't get any more grief. So they picked on the next person in the line. But then nearly lost a hand trying to build a cask under their direction. It's not easy. And those tools are very sharp and very heavy. But yeah, so the distillery itself is quite unique, actually, in that it actually generates so much excess heat. And when it was built by the chap who would end up being the world's first master blender, effectively, and that company would then lead on to be Diageo many moons later. They built it in a way that they have pipes coming from the distillery, knowing they were going to generate excess heat from the water. And so they laid the pipes under the local houses, streets, and school, so they heat the local area free of charge, instead of wasting any of the heat. And they still do it to this day, which I think is a remarkable thing, considering it's in quite a poor neighborhood as well. I think it would probably really help the locals. So it's quite a nice touch. May not be in summer, but hey ho. But it's one of them those unsung nice touches within the industry. 170 people work there, but only 7 are required to operate the entire distillery, which has a max capacity of, I think it's nearly 6 times. It would be nearly 8 times the new Macallan distillery. Yeah, no one's ever heard of it. Crazy, isn't it? So most grain whiskey goes into the blended Scotch world, and so it's the backbone of the blended Scotch industry. It's only people really like us and our peers like Cadden Heads, SMWS, Douglas Lang, etc., who really champion grain and kind of roll with it. Yeah, I hope that helped. Was that a reasonable kind of overview of the distillery there? Any follow-up questions at all? Sorry.
I was just going to say, I had a bottle of Old Particular 18 North British a while ago, and it was really rubbery. And this one's totally different. And normally you have like the flavor profile seems to be quite similar across this, but it was very, very different between the two. Is that because it's grain, or is that just?
How old was it, if you don't mind me asking?
It was an 18-year-old one.
Sorry, you did say that. Apologies.
That's all right.
It may have been the different types of casks. I'd imagine if it was Old Particular, that's normally bourbon casks anyway. Yeah. It may have been a second fill. I don't know anything about the kind of provenance there, but it more likely it will come down to the cask more than the spirit. Yeah. The spirit is pretty much consistent across like every bit of the process for any distillery, unless there's a big error. Yeah, and then when you get to the age like in the 20s and beyond, you find that grain massively mellows out, almost disproportionately. Younger North British, like Cameron Bridge and Strathclyde are still quite rough in their teens, where I think Girvan's probably the only one that is surprisingly really, really good from about 11 upwards. Most of the others need more years to it. Yeah, it'll be a cask thing for sure. Yeah. Any other questions, guys? We want to hit the English thing. Sounds. So this one is our very first non-Scotch release. Hooray! And so it's the first time we've done something a bit different. 7 years old. As we always say, age doesn't really make a difference to us. We are fortunate that we put the number, by number I mean age, on the bottle because we can, and because we don't have any supply issues or contractual issues on that front. Whereas we tried to buy a cask from one distillery one time, and they it was really strange. They asked us to not put the age on the label, but you could put the distilled and bottled dates. Like, but people can minus 2022. They can use that and take away the distilled year, and it'd probably be pretty accurate. Like, it's not like it's a quiz or a calculation or indeed algebra. And they just wouldn't be moved from it. So we just said, no, we're not buying this. There's no point. There's no value in me having a needless stipulation in place where I can't put an age, which wrecks my entire design structure for the label. And then they could still work it out anyway. Like, it's just dumb. So we politely, maybe not as politely as I could have been, declined to progress that one with a very succinct statement of this was needless. But there you go. But this one we've wanted to do a non-Scotch for a long time. And this one, 4 years in first fill ex bourbon, and then 3 years in first fill ex Pedro Jimenez PX, which is sweet sherry. Those of you who were fortunate enough last year to get our Ben Rinnes PX sherry cask will know that we're quite keen on sweet sherry cask, so PX. And so there you go. There's one John lovingly squirreled away. Nice to see it open as well. Well done. Yes, I've just seen one of the comments in the chat. Sadly, I don't think they would have let us pass with Roman numerals, but I would have loved to have given that a go if I'd have thought of it. Damn it. Or in some kind of ancient Greek kind of thing. But yeah, or just holding up fingers and have a photo label. But yeah, dumb. But anyway, so yeah, this one, we like having a sherry bomb in the range, and often do. And this is probably the closest we've had to a proper kind of hard-hitting sherry bomb for a while. And it is one that, I won't lie to you, I have genuinely fallen in love with. I've been very fortunate. Obviously, I have access to the sample stock. And there's significantly less sample stock than there was when it arrived, and have been promptly told off by Kirsty for it. But that's just how it goes. What do you guys think of this one? Only 264 bottles ever produced to this one, by the way.
Yeah, it compares really well with your beloved Not Do.
Yes,
I've got a little bit of that there just to sort of, I thought I'd sort of try them back to back.
Yeah.
Really compares very well with it, I think. Fantastic. Fantastic. It's Colin. Fantastic.
Thank you very much. And lovely to see you as well, Tim. It's been far too long. Last time I spoke to you, I was talking to you on the phone whilst walking on a treadmill, of all things. Yeah, happy days. But yeah, that kind of sweetness I absolutely love. Those beautiful kind of like stewed winter fruits that come through. Just, again, for me, banging. It's my kind of thing. Really, really love it. I just realized I didn't put the links on for any further information. Here's the North British one. Oh, I accidentally sent that in a private message to someone. That's pointless, isn't it? There you go. That's that. And here's English. And then, I'll put the last one on anyway, just so it's there. And, oh, can't spell. And then there you go. Gold Rush, as a reminder, that's the coupon code for the discount at checkout tonight. Yeah, this one, I just love it. The juiciness on it, the fruitiness, hasn't got that much spice going on, but it has enough kind of warmth to carry it through. I think definitely one of the favorites, I think, that I've enjoyed from our range. And then also, frustratingly, we released it 3 weeks after the award season. Damn it. Because I think this one could have actually scored pretty well. But we'll never know, because it'll be gone by the time the next one rolls around. Just how it is. But yeah. Nice. Any other thoughts, questions?
I couldn't have told this was also great. I would not I would not have guessed it was a grain whiskey.
It's not. That's probably why. It's North British and Girvan are grain, and the English and the Isla are single malts. Yeah. So no, this one's an English single malt. I'll show you the bottle now. That's the bottle there for you. Bottle 16. Oh god, shows a low number for our sample this time. Yeah, so distilled in Norfolk. You can probably guess which distillery used to have a dragon and a man in armor on its packaging. Thankfully, they moved away from that. Lovely people. I have to say, they were probably the easiest distillery I've ever dealt with to buy casks and get anything done. It was swift. It was smooth. It was efficient and very professional, which isn't always the case.
Just like the whiskey.
Indeed. Yeah, so massive creds to them, especially Mike there. He really helped us out. And yeah, no, we'll be back. That's for sure. I don't know when, but as long as he's all right with that, we'll definitely be back. I should also point out, only because I've just noticed that it was on the floor. The whole reason we originally set this tasting up was before we found out about all the other kind of lovely golden things. But it was because when we got the Business of the Year award this year, we get a beautiful piece of perspex to celebrate that, which we like. We like trophies. We really like trophies, as John knows. I was a bit gutted. I can't remember which one it was last year, but we didn't get a. You didn't get a. We actually sent a bunch of flowers for winning some competition last year, and I was a bit upset that I don't get why you'd ever send a depreciating asset for a congratulations. So so John sent me a Lego trophy, which I spent a lovely kind of half an hour building, and it's now proudly, you probably can't see it here, but it is actually there, right there on the shelf behind us, and is a pride of place amongst the whiskey archive there. So yeah, it's just want to Kirsty sends her apologies, by the way. She's watching this on the Facebook feed, so that's good that it seems like it's working. But yeah, one of our boys has unfortunately A, not gone to sleep when he should have, but B, is feeling rather unwell. So the realities of a family business, unfortunately, shown live both on Zoom and Facebook. But that's how it is. Yeah, it's a shame because we're about to get to her absolute favorite one, which would have been nice for her to go through. Let me just catch up on any of the comments in the chat. Yep, it's full-bodied, good mouthfeel, spirit is clean, PX cask. Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, I think Dan says, I think the expense of the PX cask you chose paid off. No sulfur. Woohoo! Yeah, absolutely, man. Let's see. Lee says it's amazing how the texture of PX appears in the dram. Maybe my own brain making a connection, or maybe not. No, I think you're bang on there. Bob says much sweeter than the Knockdo, very different to the official English whiskey co-releases. Absolutely. Nice lingering sherry finish. You've no room for those trophies with all those bottles of whiskey. Don't you worry, Matt. I'll make room. Filey Bay are good English. Yes, they are. And Joe there, the master distiller, lovely guy. We've known each other for a number of years, and he's a very, very good bloke. And doing wonderful things. Their most recent releases, especially stunning. Alistair, any other English distilleries to be had in the future? We're working on it. A lot of them are have actually closed the doors to selling casks, sadly, which is a real shame because you don't really. In Scotland, you're almost obliged to, if not definitely obliged, to sell casks to the indie bottlers because or at least they've got kind of a dark market of sorts that's not publicly accessible, but we have access and other bottlers and people do. But in English, they haven't really got an association yet to dictate any of the rules. So a lot of them have closed cask buying, which is a bit of a frustration on our side. Lakes, Cotswolds, absolutely, Bob. I would love from both of those. And we have incredible relationships at both. Yeah, I might spend tomorrow morning just pestering them. Actually, yeah, I've got a clear hour actually, from 9 till 10. There you go. That's what the fine folks at those distilleries are going to be waking up to in their inboxes. Ouija, yes, Spanish PX. It is actually Spanish PX. Good shout, sir. From Jerez. Lewis, I just bought the English. Magic. Thank you very much, Lewis. Ding, ding, ding. Well in. John, absolutely get another. You should. John, don't pester on our behalf. They'll get really annoyed. Thank you, though. I appreciate that. Do you know what? I'd love to do the English distillery tour. We've never had the chance to do the tour, sadly, but just how it goes. But beautiful distillery, nicely put together. And yeah, I said really, really helpful, lovely people. Any other kind of thoughts or questions before we move on to the last one? Silence. I'll take that as a resounding endorsement of happiness. So there we go. Oh, I hear a buzzer. I hope you all heard the buzzer. That's either my office being robbed or Kirsty's back. I think Kirsty's back. Yeah. Yep, I'm happy on both of those counts. Thank you. Boom. It's almost like you sensed we were getting to your favorite whiskey, Kirst. Oh, sorry, there's a big bit of perspex on this. There you go.
Sorry about that. The realities of parenthood.
Yeah.
And a child that won't go to sleep when all I want to do is drink and talk about whiskey.
Yes. For the first time.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Oh dear.
Right, I'm going to pour you a whiskey after you've been through all of that. Whilst
I'm going back to Girvan.
Oh, sorry. Do you want to talk about the Isla?
You go ahead. Get my breath back.
So no, fair play. So this is our Isla Cask. We lovingly refer to it as our Mega Award winner, mostly because it has done just that. So I'd get rid of that sample bottle. We have a proper one here. Oh, look at that. You can even hear the clinking of a double gold medal on the side of it, which we obviously absolutely love. So yeah, this one has won a load of shiny things, but most importantly, just in the last fortnight, actually, or 3 weeks now, isn't it? Maybe something like that. As we went on holiday just after all this stuff happened. Initially, the IWSC awarded it 98 out of 100 points, which is obviously one of the highest awards you can get. And then they followed up with a gold outstanding medal as well, which ranks it in the absolute top whiskies in their competition, followed a week later by the San Francisco World Spirits Competition, awarding it double gold, which is the highest award you can get in world whiskey, and happens to be our second one in 2 years. So, and you get a real medal, which I will be wearing either like a mayor or a war hero in the office for a little bit. Yes, I'm not joking. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
so
your favorite, isn't it?
It is my favorite, and I always talk about Isla and this particular release as it was quite a big changing moment in our business. So when I know you've been talking about our early releases, but we really shied away from a PT release, a peated release, and a lot of that was down to, a nervousness. People were asking us earlier, are you nervous about, how long it takes to finish things and when to release something? And bottling an Isla whiskey was a real nervous time for us, and we put it off. Some of that was down to access of the cask, and also the cost and expense. And we are, a small business set up off our own backs, and to invest in that was quite a big deal. And then with the releases getting more and more traction, speaking to our customers, people were really interested to try, a cask that we'd selected that had those, deep smoky notes on it. And so this was where we got to with our cask selection. And when we released it, it was just a real moment of, is this going to work? We've spent a lot of money in this, a lot of time selecting the right cask. People are waiting for this. People, every time we were doing events, it's like, oh, let me try the peated one. It's like, oh, we've not got one. And then when we bottled it, and it brought back a lot of memories as well. It was one of our first trips up to Isla.
It's my birthday, wasn't it?
It was.
You surprised me with a week on Isla. And we ended up extending the stay because we were having so much fun, didn't we?
We did, and because on the way up, I'd booked us the really long journey where we had to get
Kenneth Ferry.
Yeah, we'd get the train up from London, then the ferry across, taxis across. It was just a nightmare. Well, it wasn't a nightmare.
So we sacked the return ferry off and got the plane instead.
Yeah.
With an extra suitcase full of booze.
There was, yeah. We needed the flight to get it back. So that was it. It was bringing back all those memories as well. And this is our business as well. So these personal memories that we've had, then are reflected sometimes in the cask. And it's not just, I know you said before about shiny things, let's bottle it, but sometimes it is those memories that make you think, do you know what, let's try it and go for it. And this was definitely one of those releases. And apart from all the emotional side of it, it tastes bloody amazing. Which again, the awards have backed that up. It's given us a real confidence that we can excel in this arena, which is something that we've always wanted to do. So, absolutely. Yeah.
And then also it's genuinely is Kirsty's favorite release we've ever done. And Kirsty's a huge Isla whiskey fan. Just as a side note, when we started going out, because he didn't really drink whiskey that much, maybe Jameson, and then found a love for my limited edition Isla Festival bottlings. Ardbeg Galileo. See you later.
Yeah.
I barely got a sniff.
And that was before I really knew, the true value.
Jesus Christ. Yeah. And it's got Ardbeg Galileo. Then it was the Lefroy.
I think you came back from a trip and you went to reach for a bottle. I think it was in the tube as well, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
And he went into the tube to get it out. And I was like, what? Where's this gone?
How hot's it been here? It's evaporated. I wasn't a happy camper.
No.
Not in the slightest. Although the Craigellachie 23 was the fastest one that went down. I remember I ended up moving the bottle. So that's a very expensive bottle. And again,
I didn't Google how much that was worth when trying it.
Technology. Sorry, team. This is obviously not us. Gotta love tech, eh? So essentially, we had this Craigellachie 23-year-old, and the bottle, to be fair, was given to us as a thank you for doing some stuff. But ultimately, I went away on a work trip and came back, and about 2/3 of the bottle had magically disappeared. And I was clearly not a happy camper. And so I took the bottle and put it into the tube of a Craigellachie 13-year-old, knowing that Kirsty would never go back down a range once she found her happy place in it. And you never found it, did you? No. Never.
I moved on through the collection.
You did. You absolutely destroyed it.
I think we've lost all the questions.
Yeah, sorry. There were a few comments and questions. For some reason, I don't know what happened with Zoom. It just reset itself. If you put a question in there in the last kind of 5 minutes, if you wouldn't mind either reposting it or just ask it out loud, that'd be great. And any thoughts on the Isla would be greatly appreciated as well, if you've got any questions.
I would agree with Kirsty. It's one of the best of your range. Definitely.
Thank you. Yeah.
Lee, I'm taking this bottle to Isla with me this week for some evening drinking after the tours. First for me actually tasting it. Wow, great stuff. Thank you very much. Matt asks, is it Kalila? We're not allowed to, as you can probably tell from the bottle, it says, sorry about the clinking of that lovely double gold medal. It says distilled at An Isla Distillery, because Bunnahabhain asked us not to tell anyone where it's distilled. So we decided just to keep it low key and not upset the apple cart, really. Yeah. And a private message just came in. Bloody love this. Buying it now. Beautiful citrus notes with the peatiness too. Thank you very much. You want more, don't you?
Yeah, I was going to say, I've just drank an empty glass.
See, this is the only one where we used an open sample bottle as well. It's gone. You can have any of the others. It's fine.
Yeah.
You didn't get to try the North British, so have a little go on that. So yeah, it was the wrong distillery, Matt. But as I said, I can't confirm which one it is because of the contractual obligations with Bunnahabhain. But there you go. So yeah.
That is cool.
Might not sound like a compliment, but I don't like Isla peated malt at all. But I can tolerate that.
That's
so
a
in a way it is a compliment. It's
you know what?
that we buy a bottle, but that's okay. I can tolerate it.
Thank you very much. Do you know, I'll take that and put that as a review on the label next time we do a batch. I can tolerate. He can tolerate this. Yeah, approved by Alistair. You know, there's actually one of the founding members of our local whiskey club, which I mentioned I founded in 2019. He turned up day one and tasting one, absolutely hated peated whiskey, is what he said to me. Hated it. And I'm not going to try that. Don't want to try that muck. Like, all right. And the last one on the first flight we ever did was the Lefroy travel retail duty free exclusive Pedro Jimenez cask. You can tell we like a bit of PX. He had one sip of it, got online, and from one of the airport websites bought 3 bottles of it. Like, yeah, it doesn't all have to be a back slap and a kind of aggression of peat. It can be.
I do get why people are so scared. You know, when I was first coming into the world of whiskey and speaking to people, you know, a lot of people do have that experience of remembering, you know, back to when they were younger and all they could smell was that peat and smoke whenever anybody opened a bottle of whiskey.
Yeah. And
then that the smell is what put people off, which obviously, you know, is a sensory experience, so that's understandable. But actually, you know, again with whiskey, it's not always what you get on the nose that's what's on the palate. And for me, the real sweetness and the dark chocolate notes that come out on this make it a lot more tolerable than some of the other peated whiskies.
Absolutely. It is that chocolate note, because you identified that first as well. And since you said it, it's all I kind of get when I'm trying it, and I absolutely love it. It's yeah, I mean, I love peated whiskies. I drank them a lot more during my 20s actually, but not as much nowadays. But if I'm having a peated whiskey, I'll probably have them for the night because they're more powerful. They're kind of a bit more for me in my world anyway, a bit more niche. So yeah, it'll be like a couple of nights of that a year. I'll be like, right, let's get my peat on and go nuts.
But you really get a citrus note on this, and I really don't get that. For me, it's more the chocolate and the like almost a caramelization rather than the
and you know, but that's also the magic of whiskey, isn't it, that we all get different things. I think it's something that hasn't come up tonight actually, but virtually everyone experiences flavor in a different way. And it's I always feel it's one of those important things to point out. Oh, by the way, Stuart, you don't have to turn off your video. I was enjoying trying to work out who was winning at that football game behind you on your back garden. We were winding him up earlier because his kids were making faces behind him at the window.
I should have had Harry.
There you go. There they are. And I don't think you're going to be a big fan of Lewis anymore, just scanning the videos. He knows who you support.
Oh, yeah, I did hear this conversation.
Yeah. Awkward.
But I don't think that we should bring football into whiskey.
Vamos. But yeah, unfortunately, it's probably not something we should bring up, is it? No. But everyone experiences flavor in such a different way that doing tastings like this and kind of conversations about whiskey is one of the joyous parts of what we do, because everyone does come back to us with a different response, right? And there'll be a core kind of set of flavors that pretty much everyone will or should get at some point. But around that, it was all based on our flavor memory and what we've experienced over time, what food we've eaten, what countries we've visited pre-2020, and all of that kind of stuff. So it's
that's how my confidence within whiskey really built up, because actually no one could tell me that I'm wrong, because I might get something that you don't get, and it's a nice way to like introduce people into it and try and, because that's one thing about me with whiskey, is trying to make it less scary and more approachable. And I think that when you tell people, well, you can't be wrong because it's up to you. Like, you might not get the same notes that I get. I think that really does open it up to people that are sometimes nervous about the category as well. Yeah,
100%. Just a reminder, by the way, if anyone, I know I've mentioned it a couple of times, but if you are getting any bottles or anything tonight, use the code in the chat, Gold Rush, for that discounty thing. And yeah, we'll get them all out tomorrow. I can see from the email count pinging up that a few of you have got involved in that, so thank you very, very much for your support. Always truly appreciated. Any other questions or anything whilst we're all here and together?
Greg, any plans to pitch up at some of these whiskey festivals and stuff like that go on?
No, we did one in Birmingham.
Not like the Isla one and the Speyside one, but you know, they have like the Aberdeen Whisky Festival, the Stirling one. There's one going on in Glasgow, I think this week actually. You know, those kind of things where you take a stall and, you know, people go around the independents and the distillers and stuff.
Yeah, it's something that we've obviously attended ourselves, and we've always thought, oh, would be nice. But let's just say the people that, well, a lot of the people that attend, us included, are there to try as many whiskies in the time allowed. And that leads to a lot of supply of our very limited exclusive releases. So managing stock, going to those events, and then having to pay at those events, it just doesn't work out. Although it'd be great brand awareness, often people don't remember what brands they've tried after a lot of those events as well. So it's when we're a smaller business, and at the minute, you know, everything is marked on, you know, does it bring back revenue for us, or are we there to meet particular types of people or things? It's hard really to justify with our limited marketing budgets. So
yeah,
something that maybe when
one
we're
day,
at that brand awareness.
Yeah, we did one in Birmingham early in March, I think it was, because it was a much smaller kind of thing, and we know the guys there, and it was let's see how this works, and it was great, to be fair. It's one of the busiest days of pouring and talking I've had in a long time, but there was a very clear marker at 3 o'clock, and I think it finished at 5, I think, something like that. It felt like that anyway. And at 3 o'clock it suddenly just turned, where I actually had a 10-minute break of, like, no one really came near me for a bit, which is kind of nice. I went over to a couple of my colleagues in the industry from different brands, and and said to them quite frankly, I'm sorry for all the times that I've been the other side of the table asking for, I know they've called the final bell, but go on, lads, you know, we go back, way back, give us another one. Or that kind of classic walk up to the table and say, oh, do you want to try a whiskey? Have you heard of this? Oh yeah, I'll try the one on the far right, because the range is always lined up, so it goes up in age. And it's like, oh yeah, I'll just try that one, please. Have you got anything down there that you haven't told anyone about? Oh, God's sake. So yeah, I actually wrote a public apology jovially on Facebook afterwards for years of whiskey shows. We are actually doing one in July. We've got, I think it's July the 9th in Birmingham as well. Same company. I hope it's the same place, because it's already in the sat nav. They're doing an independent whiskey bottlers only event. So we'll be there at that. But yeah, in terms of the ones you mentioned, it's very unlikely for quite a while, because it would need, like Kirsty said, it would need quite a lot of spend behind it, with no kind of tangible payback from it, if that makes sense. And we're too small to be able to do that kind of thing at this stage. Just scrolling back quickly. Stuart, I bought a bottle of this a couple of weeks ago. That's the Isla. I drank most of it. Awesome. Then my dad nicked it from my house. Haven't seen it since. Well, he loses 5 points. Just bought a small. Thank you very much. It's very kind. Bob, until joining Points and Whiskey Club, I pretty much hated Isla. Now I love Lagavulin and Kalila and the GreatDrams Isla of Mystery. Yeah. Alistair, any Highland peated? Interesting question. We may do. I think you might want to look at what our Christmas release this year will be. What?
Which
tease.
usually sells out in September when we say Christmas. So
yeah, we tease it in August, July, August, when it's funny, like it's in there, like it's about to be bottled, and then it's normally gone within a few days or weeks, actually.
Sit me down for a couple, Greg.
Noted. That really is noted, John. Yeah, that one will be Highland peated, and it'll have quite a nice story behind it as well, actually. But I'm not going to tell you that now, because it's
we'll have nothing to talk about the next virtual tasting.
Yeah, you'll just hear me say the same stuff all over again.
Greg, you are at some of the markets though, aren't you?
Yeah, we do like food and drink shows around the country. So we're in where the hell am I on Saturday?
At the Cheshire Food Festival.
It is. Yeah,
which we only booked today, so that's why we don't know where it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do a lot more of those. Again, it's down to marketing return, and again, being small, we tend to be in places a bit more of a shopper environment, so that then obviously people can taste and want to buy a bottle. So yeah, so we do a lot of the big pub in the park events. We're doing the foodies festivals as well. Not all locations, again, because we're small. So we tend to do anything north of the M25, this side of it, we try and stick to, just because logistically in a weekend and usually weekend events, it's a bit more tricky.
Unless it's the pub in the parks down like Marlow and
but that's still
yes, but I don't really understand where roads are. I go wherever Siri tells me to go.
You go wherever I book. Because I think that's going to work marketing wise.
Yeah, totally, 100%. Lewis asked, where have you found best bang for your buck? Exactly what Kirsty just said. Transactional environments. Stuart, since Ouija got me involved with Tockers a few years ago, I've always enjoyed your releases. Thank you very much, Stuart. Truly appreciated. That Tockers was bonkers, wasn't it? We actually have another cask of from that distillery at the minute, and it just scored a Christ, what did it get? I think it got silver IWSC, didn't it? 91 out of 100. Yeah, so we're pretty happy with that. But that won't be released for a few more months. Yeah. Matt went to the oh, there he is, John. Cheeky. You got quicker access to the bottles than I do, mate. Went to Manchester Whisky Festival, had a chat to the fella for a while, eventually refused to give me a sample of Hague. Oh wow, you must have really bored him with your chat. My God, I'd have thought he'd be throwing that at you. Man, that's a dark place to be. But I was probably there, by the way, at the same time, because we go to that one every single year. We'll be going in October as well. I think it's the Friday evening session we're going this time. There's a few of us going down from Whisky Club and Kirsty's dad. Reynard, can you link to the Birmingham show? Oh God, I don't know. I don't know. I don't think they've got a website for it. It's on the Grain to Glass, their bar. Used to be the Birmingham Whisky Club. Guys, they're the ones behind it. And Heaton Park Foodie Festival, I'll defer that to you.
I'd be interested to know, have you been before? Because that was one that was on my list and I wasn't sure what it'd be like. So if you have been, I would like to know more about it.
So email Kirsty at GreatDrams.com with the pitch.
Yeah, if there's anywhere you would like us to appear and that you think you come down and support us, let us know.
And Mark says that Isla is superb, classic Isla nose without the heft that can make it. Yep. Isla too heavy going. Completely agree. And Peter says never, but definitely if you're there. Wicked. Yeah.
I'll put that on the to-do list for tomorrow.
Yeah, that's on Kirsty's list now. Sweet. Any other thoughts or questions, guys, or any kind of mood to ones you loved or thoughts about them? Oh, positive noises.
Just to say thanks very much for hosting this. It's been a lovely evening. Really enjoyed it.
Cheers, Ren. I really, really appreciate that. And thank you all for taking the time to come and celebrate with us. Really, it's genuinely a joy for us to be able to do things like this. And the first time we've ever done a tasting like this as well. Yeah. So it's been quite interesting from our side and very enjoyable. Yeah, as you can probably tell, we limited it to 20 people and then we thought, screw it, we'll just let everyone who applied go and come and get involved. Because we're that kind of instinctive and it just happens really. But we're super chuffed with all of your feedback, thoughts. I can see all the comments popping up in the chat. And